Welcome back. President Cyril Ramaphosa moving the country to adjust to level 4 of the lockdown. DA leader John Steenhuisen joins us now for reaction. John, of course, you are not happy. I just saw your statement. You reckon this is a failure on government's part, which is why we're here at level 4 again.
Well, absolutely. I think that we've missed out on the one thing that is the game changer in fighting this pandemic, and that is the vaccine. I think we've seen, even though there have been other variants in other countries, people have been protected from being exposed to serious symptoms or death as a result of that particular vaccination program that's been rolled out. And I think that I think that government's dropped the ball on the one big game changer here. And tonight the president hardly mentioned vaccines, where we were told we're suddenly magically going to get to the 300,000 mark. Today in South Africa, we vaccinated 2,289 people. That's nowhere near good enough in terms of being able to protect more citizens. The truth of the matter is we're sitting without vaccines, and we're sitting with a situation where less than 1% of the population is vaccinated, leaving many, many people at risk. And now government's only tool in its arsenal to look like it's doing something is these regulations that have been announced this evening.
John, what do you think he could have done better tonight? He's given us 14 days to get it right. Do you think that's enough?
No, it's not enough. So what I would have announced this evening if I was him, I would have channeled government money towards funding overtime for staff to man the vaccination centres. The big game changer in all of this now, Jane, is jabs and arms. We've got to get as many jabs and as many arms as quickly as possible. 2,000 to just over 2,000 a day is not good enough. We've got to be vaccinating at scale, which means we need two things: vaccines, and we need the personnel to be able to administer those vaccines. Earlier in the week, I made some suggestions to the presidency about how they could ensure that we had the right personnel in those places. But it all comes down to the vaccine supply, and we keep being told vaccines are secured, vaccines are on their way. The truth of the matter is that government and President Ramaphosa has missed every single promise that he's made. 2 million at the end of March. We missed that hopelessly. We're told these vaccines are secured. We're going to reach 300,000 per day. But there's no plan about how we're going to get there. You've got to have the personnel, you've got to have the vaccines, and you've got to have the means to get the vaccines to the vaccine sites. I visited in the Overstrand municipality last week a number of sites where they've had to close the sites down, not because there's no demand, not because there's no personnel, but because there are no vaccines. So we've got to do something to ramp up the number of vaccines getting into arms across South Africa, or many more people are going to die, and we're going to head towards a fourth wave later this year.
And the question is whether we'll adequately prepare for a fourth wave, because it seems that government failed to prepare for the third wave, John, according to experts. I've just received a text, Jane, and this is very sad to hear, from a restaurant manager who says the president must answer why my shop will close down tomorrow and how I'm going to feed my children because I'm not going to work. John, you in your statement mentioned that job losses is basically now on the president because of these restrictions.
Deaths, as hard as it is to say, deaths, job losses are now at the president's door. We gave the leeway and the mulligans right at the beginning. This was something we couldn't prepare for. We're now 15 months into this pandemic. There's no excuse for us not to have vaccines. There's no excuse for us not to have bridging finance for the economies that are going to be affected. And Lucky and Tamani, I'm sure, is going to tell you what the devastating effect this is going to have on small business owners a little bit later. But restaurants, big employers, tourism, big employers. We lost 3.5 million jobs in the first hard lockdown. I imagine the numbers that are going to come through this time are going to be many more than that, as this is going to be the breaking point for many business owners, many restaurants, many people in the tourism industry who simply will not be able to survive this lockdown as a result of the fact of government missing out the opportunity to focus on the one thing that would have been able to get us through this thing safely and more effectively, and that is the vaccines.
And John, I mean, it really seems to be a case of catch-up. He was talking about how he's going to release more beds. I mean, David Mabuza very considerate heading off to Russia so he doesn't take one of those beds, but also how he will get more medical personnel up and running. I mean, where do you think it all went wrong? Do you think there's so much political adversary happening within the ANC and within government that he hasn't been able to move forward? Or, I mean, what do you think it is?
Well, I think that you've seen with the current health minister who's on leave on full pay while restaurant owners are going to lose their businesses and people who work in them lose their businesses. You can see where his head was. It wasn't in the game. His head was in getting, channeling COVID funding towards, connected individuals through the digital vibe scandal. We just focused on doing all the wrong things last year instead of focusing on the things that really made a difference. So government looked busy, putting out regulations on what you could buy, what clothes you could buy, whether you could buy cooked chickens, banning alcohol, banning cigarettes. All of these mean absolutely nothing in the greater fight against the coronavirus pandemic in South Africa. Vaccines was always going to be the game changer. Chile was hitting the 300,000 mark months ago, and we're not vaccinating over weekends. We've had full weekends where there's not been a single person vaccinated in South Africa. It's just wrong prioritization and an incapable state that even when it wants to do the right thing, cannot actually press the button and get those things done.
All right. Thanks so much for that. Appreciate it. The DA's leader, John Steenhuisen.